Okay. All right, we are live again. Hey, welcome back, everyone. We are here for the community to community collaborations. I have a special guest today. And listen, y'all know how excited I've been getting about all of the nuances of what's been happening in the W.I.N community and far and wide. And since we started just really reaching out to other leaders that are just doing powerful things, of course, one of the first people that came to mind was Tara. And it's Gahirti. Did I say it right? Gahirti?
Garrity. Nobody can pronounce
Garrity.
my last name. I
I
know.
knew I was
I
going.
think, yeah, it's not even spelt the way it sounds, so nobody gets that.
Okay, I'm going to have to practice that one, and it's so unique and different. So I can't wait for them to get to know you, Tara. But the way I found Tara was through Clubhouse. A lot of you know us through Clubhouse. That's how you found us, and still continue to find us. And I was really impressed by her community, and I've always thought at the forefront of my mind, like, what does it look like from behind the scenes? And Tara, when I started my community, I had already been in your community, and I was like, oh, that is not easy because you were making it look really easy. You make it look so easy. So I really can't wait to interview you today so people can get to know you, the behind the scenes of what community really looks like, right? And also to see what it looks like when two leaders come together and share our common experiences. Because I not only really, when I look back on it, I was looking at you as a mentor, right? Because you were hosting so many amazing spaces. And then once I started my community, I was like, oh my God, like Tara, Jesus, what were you doing that made it so amazing and so
Oh.
impactful and made it look so easy? So I'm going to start there. Let me stop rambling, and y'all know who I am. So let me go ahead and pass it to you, Tara. Introduce yourself, please, and we'll get started with the conversation after that.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited to be here because I feel like Allegra's like my OG back from, our long ago Clubhouse days. And you were, I will say, you were a huge instrumental piece in hosting rooms when we first started, inviting people into our community. So I have always been incredibly grateful to you for everything that you did to pour into the Hey Girl You Can community. You were such an important part when we were building that. And that, Clubhouse has changed a lot since then, and we don't really do much on there anymore. But you were a key person in hosting rooms and bringing people. And so when you were like, hey, will you show up? Of course, I will do whatever you need me to do. I think too, you were one of the first people who took my how to build a community class, like before I even had a class. And it was funny because as the community was growing so quickly, people kept saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? And literally my answer was nothing. And I finally had a friend of mine, and she said, Tara, that is ridiculous. You obviously are doing something. And I remember I was sitting in the driveway and I was on the phone with her. I'm like, I'm really not doing anything. I mean, I'm doing this, and I mean, I'm doing that, and I mean, I'm doing this. And she's like, Tara, those are all the things people want to know. And what I said to her, Allegra, is I said, doesn't everybody do that? And she said no. She said that's what you put this class on. But it was so funny, guys. I had never done an online class. I was not a course creator. I didn't have a website. Like I had none of that stuff. And I literally remember I said, okay, well, I guess I'll do a master class on how to build your community. I kind of came up with a workbook. I put all my stuff in a workbook. But then I couldn't figure out, like, how do I stream? How do I use Zoom? How do I go live? Like, this was in the beginning of COVID, right? Like, I had never streamed. I had never done. And it was like the night before this class was supposed to go live. And I'm in my office, like, crying in tears, trying to figure out the tech. And I had two friends. They were like, Tara, pull it together. We will get you through this. And so I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think it taught me a lot of things. One is that when you surround yourself with the right women, they will cheer you on and they will reach down and lift you up when you need them, right? Successful women want other women to be successful. I always say this, if you're getting a vibe from somebody that she doesn't want to tell you her secrets, you don't want her secrets. She's not the one that you want mentorship with because she is not successful. She is not in a space of go give. She is in a space of lack and limitation. And if I tell you my secrets, then I will like that. Don't take the secrets. You don't want them. They're not going to be any good, right? You want to go get the secrets from the people who are like, let me tell you everything, right? And so that I learned. And I also learned that you have to just do stuff when you don't know what you're doing and you figure it out in the process. Because if I had waited, Allegra, I never would have done that. course. I still don't know what I'm doing half the time. I mean, really, right? You just kind of, you figure it out as you go. So it's so funny when you say, oh, you make it look like, I'm like, no, I had no clue what I was doing.
No, that's a great introduction. And I just want to just give honor where it's due, because yeah, it's from the outside looking in, it looks easy. And I think that sometimes, and I think you emphasize that, like, you're just out here being great. Like, you know,
Well, I
like
don't know
I'm
about
just
that. I'm
out
just
here
out
being
here.
I'm out here being great. And people are watching that and they're wondering, like, what does that greatness look like if I, chose to get there, And I think owning who you are is part of what I saw with you, right? Like, you weren't always doing Hey Girl You Can Club. I remember when you would show up in the rooms and you also talk about some of the communities that you've built, with your business, and how, even some of the family stories you shared. And I think that that's genuinely being you, and just being transparent enough to say, I don't know it all and I need help, and all things that we talk about. You were one of the first women that I saw speaking about these things in safe spaces for other women,
Mm,
where there were a lot of other communities for women, but a lot of times, it can be suffocating. It can be
mm.
suffocating. It can feel very, like, intimidating or overwhelming, because, maybe there's not enough space for you, because, there's qualifiers. There's just so many different things I've seen over the past 3 years.
Wow.
So I just want to honor you for that space. And that's why I really said, hey, listen, I even told my mentor, I said, I'm bringing these powerful women on here because I want my community to see what it looks like to be empowered by other leaders, by the communities, and that there are no walls.
Yeah.
And when I had that conversation, she said, well, make sure that they're all legitimately businesses. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I do. But I said, but no, I kind of don't either. Because I was at a place when I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know, how I was going to be inspired by that. But then there were people genuinely opening up spaces for me and saying, hey, feel free to come to the stage and do your rooms. And that 6 a.m. room that we did in your community, do you know we still do affirmation rooms today in the W.I.N community?
Do you? Wow.
Yo,
I know you
and
used to do
pull
that
up,
6 a.m.
y'all.
room. And I was like, if somebody wants to get up at 6 a.m., Lord help you people, but you go with it. I'm not that person. Like, I worked to get up at 9 o'clock. Like, that was in order to be functioning and speaking to people at 9 a.m. Initially, I was like, I don't want to. And Caroline, my sister-in-law, who was really active on Clubhouse, she was the one who was building it. And she said, Tara, you need to get over it and be there at 9 a.m. And I was like, I'm not getting up at 9 a.m. And you also have to remember, like, I had another business. This wasn't my thing, right? And she's like, you are missing out. This is and it was, what's that saying about luck, right? About success. It's like timing, luck, opportunity, saying yes. Like, there's so many pieces. And it was just perfect timing. That Clubhouse was a timing of, it was COVID. People were home. They were looking to connect. It was a new app. We got in early. So there was a lot that played into that. But yeah, I was like, all right, fine, I'll do 9 o'clock. And that was a commitment for me. I
Well,
mean, that was a
you were
commitment.
you were so transparent, so that's why I raised my hand. But I think that
Oh,
that's why it came down to how you were saying as a leader, and we had this discussion in our earlier lives. Are you asking for help? Are you asking the right people for help? And, are you doing the work, enough where you're saying, I actually tried it, and I'm not just self-sabotaging. But I do want to ask you a question.
yeah.
I want to know, what made you say, I'm going to start Hey Girl You Can Club? And what made you say, I'm going to do
So,
it?
so I'll tell you. So, full transparency, guys, my background is in direct sales. Okay, so I went to school for theater and drama and choreography. I was a professional dancer, all that kind of stuff. I fell into direct sales as a result of that. I met somebody through through theater, and I started a direct sales business when I was 20 as a way to support my starving theater business. So let's kind of clarify, like, that is my background. I had no business skill. I never took a business class in my life. Okay. So I get into direct sales, which is immersive, if you've never been in that industry, in personal development, right? It's all about mindset, personal growth, like, things that I had never been exposed to before in my life. And I found that I loved that. I loved the growth mindset. I loved the personal development. And I loved the cheering other women on. I loved building my team, teaching them skills, and then watching them to succeed. And so I did very well. And I still do that. That is still my full-time business. I've done very well in that industry because I truly love working with women and watching them win and coaching and mentoring them to win. Well, fast forward 10 years into the business, I went through a very horrific domestic violence divorce, and my only child, who was 3.5, and Allegra knows this, had cancer, like stage 4 cancer, almost dies, right? And during that season, I used the tools that I had learned from theater and improv to entertain a 3-year-old in a hospital. I used the tools I had learned from personal development and growth with mindset, compartmentalizing what we think about, we bring about, right? And supported my daughter. And it's very exciting. She's now a senior. She's graduating. She's going to college. You know, I used to just pray that she would hit 7, which was like, you know, for her type of cancer, most kids didn't live to 7, right? So I just remember being like, one day she'll be 7, one day she'll be 7. And now she's 17. It's crazy. So when that ended, I had a lot of people saying, you need to write a book. You need to teach people what you did. And through my community, this is what's crazy. I had built a community on a Facebook group that had followed her during that time. So guys, this was back when Facebook had no videos, no pictures, and it started with I am, and you wrote in what you were doing. I am eating an apple, right? So nobody even knew what Facebook was, much less a Facebook group. But a friend of mine had put this little group together. It was a private group so people could keep up to date with what was going on with Emily. And it was my community, believe it or not, that actually helped fund my book. And that was when I first saw the power of a community behind you, because I was trying to get my life together and whatnot. So I end up with this book. I end up with a TEDx talk. I start speaking at medical conferences, and then COVID hits. And I went on to Clubhouse because my sister-in-law, who was like all up on these things and social media, which I'm not, and we were literally at an Airbnb over New Year's, in 2 twin beds next to each other in this Airbnb, because everything was shut down for COVID. So we were like, all right, let's go. And this was funny. I lived at the beach. We were like, let's rent a beach house for New Year's and take the kids. And I don't know, because the beach house was a half hour away from the beach I was at. It was cooler than my house, right? So we go to this beach house and we're sitting there over New Year's, and she's like, you have to try this new app. And we're literally in 2 twin beds next to each other in a room. Like, we're the only ones in the Clubhouse room. And I'm like, I don't know what this button does. She's like, I don't know what this button does. Well, she got really big into the app. And so she said to me, you have to get on this. You have to get on this. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Why am I on this thing? But I thought, you know what? I could probably meet other parents who have kids who have life-changing diagnoses. This would be a great way to meet them. So that's why I get on the app, guys. Okay. So sometimes you're like, where is God leading you? Why do these things? But I said, yes, right? I said, yes, I'll get on the app. So I'm thinking I'm going to connect with all these parents, and this is going to be great. I'm going to have my book. I'm going to be able to help them. Let me tell you, those parents were not on the app. Okay. Nobody with medically ill children at the time are on the app. It's just me and a bunch of women hanging out. So then my sister-in-law says, so Allegra, she goes, you have to do a club. You have to do a club. I'm like, I don't need a club. She's like, you do. You have to do a club. Everybody's doing a club. And this is back when like you had to submit paperwork in, and like had to write into Clubhouse and like fill out a form with like what your club was and why you wanted the club and why they should make you one. And then you had to wait to see if you were accepted. So I remember sitting there and I was like, oh, what am I going to do a club about? So I thought, what do I know? Well, I know women because I work with all women, and I've done that for, you know, all of these years, almost 20 years. I know how to coach women, right? And I know business. You know, I understand business. I know sales. I know, you know, marketing. I know all that kind of stuff. So I was like, all right, I'll do a club for women, because if I can get women in the club, then I'll be able to meet the moms who have the medically ill kids. Right? That's my way to do this. And then I'm like, okay, I need a name. So I'm like, I don't have a name. And I don't remember why. I was literally sitting at my desk and I was like, I guess we'll name it Hey Girl You Can. I have no idea where that came from. And my sister-in-law goes, that's a terrible name. And she actually said more mean things about it that aren't nice to say. So I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, I like the name, so I'm just going to choose that as the name. She was like, that's such like a basic name, right? I was like, well, I can't think of anything else, so that's going to be my name. So we take this name, we start this club. And Allegra, I think it's so interesting to hear from your perspective, because I think I applied the things that I had been doing in my in-person networking for years in my building my team in my business for years, which is technically a community, right? And in this Facebook group, like the things that I had been doing, I just shifted and kind of put into this group, and it just started to blow up. And I think there's a couple of things. When you said, oh, you were just out there being great, I don't think I was out there being great. I do think I was out there being transparent. And I think we live in a world, particularly in social media, where everybody is so invested in looking perfect. And everybody is so invested in looking like they've figured it out. And this idea of you want what I have. We live in a fake world. I mean, just sitting here right now, these eyelashes aren't real, right? Like we live in a fake world.
Honestly, I thought you just had on some good mascara. Okay, that's all I
Yeah.
know.
No, these are fake, right? Like we live in a fake world. And so when somebody shows up and is willing to take the curtain down from the Wizard of Oz, right? And be like, this is who I really am. There's not a famous word. Like, this is just me. What I think is so powerful, and this is not like, oh, so powerful, but I think when any of us do this as women, when we're pull that curtain down and we're willing to show up transparently and say, this is who I am, good, bad, flawed, it allows everybody else around us to go, oh, me too. I'm so glad that now I can be myself too, and I don't have to act like I have it all together. And so people then feel safe to step out of their comfort zone, to try something new, to stretch, to reach, to be vulnerable, to grow into better versions of themselves because they're accepted at the version they currently are. And I think that's what started to bring people into our community, because they were being told, it's okay, you don't have it together. Kind of, we're just all in here figuring this out. You know, it's kind of like, I'm a Christian, right? And so you get these Christians who are kind of like, I'm saved. The rest of you all, we all know where you're going. I've got it all figured out. Like, those are not my people. My people are, we are all flawed. None of us are as good as Jesus was, right? Like, nobody will ever be that good. None of us are God. None of us are perfect. We are just all flawed people trying our best and trying each day to get a closer version to the person that ultimately God created us to be, because he made us perfect in his image, right? And so when that happens, and it's just such a responsibility, everybody can do that, right? Like, start to think about, where are you in your business, in your career, in your communication, in your community? Where are you having to feel like you have to pretend to have it all together? And what would happen if you stopped doing that and let people see the real you, the flawed version, the good version? You will attract people like a moth to a light, because all of a sudden there's a light in you that people see and they're like, I want to be closer to that light. Right. And I learned that when Emily had cancer. You know, I ran a successful business and very young, in my 20s. I used to wear a 3-piece suit every day so I would look older and put together. I was training women who were 20 and 30 years older than me. I felt like I had to not pretend, but I just felt like I had to act like I was this certain person. And, you know, when you're going through domestic violence and your ex-husband's stalking you and threatening to kill you, and your kid's in the hospital and your life is falling apart, and you've had like everything ripped out from underneath you, and you're like, I'm just sitting here like hanging on, folks. And everybody knew, like everybody in my community knew. And what should have felt so horrifying actually felt so freeing. It was like, I don't have to pretend anymore. I don't have to look like I have it all together. Everybody knows I don't. Come hang out with me on the rug over here. I'm sitting here on the floor. Come hang out with me. Let's be friends together. And it was crazy. People were so connected to that. And I will say, I have I've appreciated, this was one of the gifts that I got from that season in my life. I have this strange light. I tried to move it before we started filming. It's coming back. It's following me. So look at it. It's like, and of course it's like right in the middle, like, right? So either it's really cool, like I have some great lighting, or it's like, lady, why can't you fix your camera? I'm not sure what it is. Let's try moving a little bit. I feel like it's more, lady, fix your camera. But there's something like, so, you know, I don't want to go back to having to feel like it's so perfect and put together. I want to be transparent, and this is who I am, and this is my struggles. And I want you to be that way too, because that's where we're powerful. right? That's where we're powerful. And so, and I think your space that you provided in our community gave women a way to come in the morning at 6 a.m. Oh, Lord Almighty, and start their day with so much positivity and start their day in a different mindset and in a different energy and a different space where you were pouring into them. And that's why people kept showing up, because they needed like this shot of Allegra to start their morning, right? And most people don't have that. And I think that's why your WIN community is so powerful, because you show up as that kind of leader. You show up where I've seen you. You are highly invested in your people. You are highly invested in your relationships. You want the women to feel connected, to feel important. Like you are a true, authentic leader. You're the real deal. And it's been exciting to watch your journey because I know where your heart comes from, right? And that's what women need. Like we desperately are looking for more leaders like you in the world. So I'm excited to see and be part of your, even be able to come in and say thank you for all that you've done for me. So
That's
I love that. Transparency equals freedom.
Yeah, I mean, that's exciting to hear, Tara, and thank you for that. Thank you for those flowers. I want to give you some back because just hearing so many different exciting parts of your story from, even your background. I love hearing how you started the Hey Girl You Can Club, because those are questions that I always have, right? Like, where does all this background experience come from? Do you have to have it all together, or who is Tara really, right? Because we always wonder the person that
Yeah.
is and you said something that was really, I think, impactful, is like, you weren't being great, you were being transparent. And I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes we have to realize that as women, we have to identify where our strengths are. And I think that transparency is one of the greatest things to be strong at, because when you said it's freeing, that it clicked for me. It did, because when I came into your community, hence what, and listen, everyone, I had some of the most amazing experiences in a Hager You Can Club. It wasn't just the 6 a.m. room. Tara is definitely, an inspiration, because when you started out those rooms, you came to the forefront as a community leader and you said, "Who wants to show up?" And it gave me an opportunity to show up, where I
Yeah.
didn't really have my own club already, where I was like doing these rooms already. And, I had the opportunity to say, hey, if I need support, who do I call for support? Right. And Tara's like, the Hey Girl You Can club will support you.
Yeah.
And they did. Every single day we had running rooms starting at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., whatever time we started, all the way into the afternoon, and we support each other's rooms. And Tara, you started that. And so I learned from you as a community leader. I never take that for granted. And then listening to your background in like sales and God, I had to write it down, because I was like, you did marketing and sales. You had to really put on a two-piece suit, right, at a certain time in your life and adjust. And I
Yeah.
think that is something that transparency is important, because a lot of us as women, if we think about it, because we did a little Women's History Month, we have that coming up soon, and we did a little research a few years back, and we said, dang, we're not that far from like when we weren't even able to like run up the corporate ladder, right?
Well, you think about it, it was the 70s. So I was born in the 70s, I'm a little older. In the
Okay.
70s, women weren't allowed to have a credit card in their own name.
Right.
Like we're not talking like multiple generations ago. We're talking about like I was born at a point where like people weren't
like
allowed to have
30 years ago.
yeah, that's crazy.
It's
You
really
know,
scary.
my
Yeah.
mom talks about how she wanted to go on and continue her education, and she was engaged, and she needed a scholarship. She'd been raised with a single mom. She needed a scholarship, and they told her the reason that you're not giving you the scholarship, even though you're qualified for and you have the grades, is because you're engaged and the school doesn't want to waste its money giving it to you when you're just going to go home and have babies. Now, obviously, in today's world, they could never say that because they would be sued. But that's what they outwardly said to her. Like, this is why you're not getting the money. You're qualified, you've got the grades, you're doing great, but you're engaged. You're just gonna go home and have babies. We're not gonna waste our money on you. And they felt like that was she was a poor investment, right? Now, this is not 3, 4 generations ago. This is my mother.
I am thrown. It really does piss me off a little, though. Deep down inside, if I'm, because I think I sugarcoat it, because we're talking to other women. So we want y'all to understand that, devastatingly enough, that was a few generations ago. But right now in today's society, we have, we don't have to deal with those traumas, right? Like we have better opportunities. And I think what you've shown me, Tara, is that we can be stronger by bringing those resources together as women,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And really being able, and I love you that you shared your story about, you know, your daughter and her life, and how her life is going to be a testimony to a lot of these things, and how, you know, that was even a growth structure for you. Because sometimes, you know, we do start things and then we think it's going to last forever, right? It's like, this is my life story, this is what's going to be it for me, right? I'm going to sell these books for the rest of my life, go on speaking tours and things like that. And that may be it, but it could be only part of your story. And for the bigger picture, I just want to put the thanks back on you, because y'all, if y'all have not joined the Hey Girl You Can community and experience the warmth, and this is what I experienced, the that level of transparency you're talking about, because every community has different a different culture. And when I came into the Hey Girl You Can club, I was like, oh my God, everybody's being so real here, and everyone's like, so, and it came from you, right? It came from you as a leader to say, I need to be transparent enough so that other people can feel that way. Now, this is the other side of it too that I want to ask you, because you share so much and I wrote it down because I'm like, this is good. This is good because I have to look back on some of my journey and say, how do I learn from that? Because I look up to you. But I do want to say, like, how do you deal with your challenges? Because those are some of the things that I was like, man, this is crazy, because building a community means that you have to deal with different people, different personalities. You have to, you know, like you said, you came in with a lot of knowledge and information on how to do different things in business. But, you know, you didn't really see the big picture yet. You just knew that you were building community.
Yeah.
So, can you name like maybe one of the biggest challenges you had and how you overcame that as a leader?
Yeah. Not everybody's going to like you.
Why I felt like that was
That is just, and I think as women, so here's the thing, right? As women, we're collaborative. We are very biologically wired different than men. And it goes back to basic biology, that when you look at, like, okay, we lived in like caves and villages, right? And women were the gatherers. And so Allegra and I would go out and we'd gather with all the other women, and we had to get the most blueberries. It didn't matter that my blueberry was bigger than your blueberry. It was how many did we all get together, right? Because we need a lot of blueberries. The men would go out and they would go hunting. It didn't matter how many went hunting. It just mattered who shot the arrow that killed the buffalo, that brought the buffalo home, and he was the hero, right? So men are very much designed to be, they want to stand alone. And there's a lot of research of like why, if you look at experts, if you go into the speaking bureaus, only 20% of experts are men. I'm sorry, are women. 80% of experts are men. However, more women in our country have PhDs than men. Now, I hope that makes sense to me. The women are more educated, but the men are the experts. And I did a fascinating class on this, about why this is rooted in biology, because men are more comfortable claiming expert status. It's really the women's fault that we're not comfortable saying, yes, I'm an expert, I know what I'm talking about. Because of, what does that mean? It means I step away from the group. It means that I have no place to learn anymore. It means I don't need you. And as women, I need you because we collaborate together, right? So it's very interesting. So with that mindset, I think women struggle a little bit more with being liked. You know, um, I don't know, and again, I'm not a biologist, right? I would think that men don't struggle as much if they're not liked. You know, women, a guy doesn't want to go out with him again, and we're all sitting around like, well, what happened? Why didn't he like you? What did he say? Let's dissect the 10 text messages that you sent, right? Guys are like, I don't know, I didn't hear back from her. You want a beer? I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, they're gonna be brokenhearted when they go through a really bad breakup, but I just think there's differences, right? Like, I think we just get upset about stuff. Like, guys are like, why do you care? Why do you care what this person who you're never going to see again thinks about you? And you're like, but she didn't like me. She looked at me the wrong way. She said, right? It's just so bizarre. But we do, okay? And depending on your personality styles, some of you are a little bit luckier. You might not have that need as much, but some of us have different drivers in life. And if you're a love and belonging, that's going to be a huge thing, right? And so as a leader, when we're building a community, we want everybody to want to be part of our community. Not everybody is meant to be in your community. Like, you are not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. That doesn't make that person a bad person, And that doesn't make you a good person. That just means that you're not the right people for each other, right? They have to go find their people and you have to go find your people. And there's enough for everybody. There's enough spaces for everybody, you know? So I think when you're building a community, you have to be really clear. What do you stand for? What are your values? What do you want? Like this was when we started Hey Girl You Can. We are not a Christian community, but I am a Christian. And so one of the things that I felt very uncomfortable with was things that were very new agey, tarot, astrology, numerology, things that kind of just went against my core values. And I had to be okay with saying, this is not the appropriate community for that. Right. I didn't want it to become but I also did, I needed it to be aligned with who I was. Now that's going to alienate some people. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't want to collaborate with them on something else. That doesn't mean that they're not a great person. That just means that I'm not going to be their best fit and they're not going to like me. Right. They're not going to like what I'm saying. They're not going to, because that's not who they are. And that's the piece. It's not everybody's going to like you. That's okay. And you still need to come from a spirit of loving them. Right? Like we are called to love one another and giving people enough respect that they can be whoever they want to be. And that's okay if they don't like you. Also, when people aren't successful and in your community, they may want to blame you for that. I learned this in my direct sales business. I remember when I would have people come in and they weren't successful and I would take it so personally, like I was a bad leader. And I really felt like, what is wrong with me? I'm a terrible coach. I'm a bad leader. My people aren't succeeding. None of them have hit this high level. And then I remember when my first person hit this really high level and she was on the National Court of Sales and she earned a career car and she moved up into leadership. I didn't sit there and go, oh my gosh, I'm so great. Look what I did. I'm so amazing. I was like, wow, she's so amazing. Look what she did. I just got to be a piece of that to mentor and coach her. But she did the work. She got the credit, right? And so a light bulb went off. Well, if I can't take credit for her success, then I can't take credit for those people's non-success. Right? Isn't that true? So that was interesting too. So then I kind of went, okay, so I'm not responsible for everybody else. Right? And at the end of the day, people are going to, and I'm dealing with this right now on a personal level, people are going to misjudge you. They're going to misunderstand you. They're going to bring their own stories about things that happen or what you said or how you said to the table. And I have a tendency to get very defensive. I want to defend myself. I'm sure that could be a whole therapy session on why that is, but that's where I come from. I come from a place of I want to defend myself. And in my healthiest moments, so I'm prefacing this is not in all of my moments, but in the moments that are healthy, I need to come from a space of, at the end of the day, the only person I'm accountable is to God. I have to be able to look myself in the mirror and know that I handled it with integrity. This was my intent. This is where my heart was. And as long as I can go to sleep and put my head down on my pillow at night and know that right, that I was coming from a golden rule, that I was coming from a high place of integrity, I am not responsible for everybody else's stories, thoughts, angers, problems, what they like, what they don't like. And I am okay that I am not meant to be everybody's person. Just like, would you guys agree? There's certain people that you love and that you connect with and that you want to be around. And there's other people that you're like, oh, that girl, she's just not my thing. Right? Does that make her a bad person? Does it make you a good person? No, she's just not your person. So if you want to build a community and you want to be around a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of people who don't like you. And also keeping in mind that we're in a country where 4% of our population deals with mental illness. And I would venture to say after COVID, it's probably higher. So that means if you have 100 people in your community, 4 of them statistically are mentally ill. If you have 1,000 people in your community, think about how many people that is. And so you just never know what somebody's personal demons are that they're struggling with, that they're dealing with, that are serious and have nothing to do with you. And so you just have to love that person and give them grace and then protect yourself, right? Like that doesn't mean that you become a doormat and you let other people walk all over you. You can still set boundaries that are loving and that are kind, but being able to go to bed at night and putting your head on the pillow down and looking yourself in the mirror and knowing that if you were face to face with God, you handled things the right way, that trumps everybody else's opinion of you. Right? So, but yeah, that's the hardest part. I want everybody to be my friend. I know you're not all going to be. That's okay. I mean, quite openly, Allegra, even for a long time, I wouldn't even tell people I was a Christian.
Well, I resonate with you on that. That's why I love, the way that you bring this, the truth to the forefront. And by the way, I respect the fact that you're from New Jersey because, I'm from New Jersey. And I feel like being born and raised up top, you kind of get a different, I guess, a different way of thinking. Because when I came to the South, I was like, what's wrong with y'all? And it just was a little weird. It was like a little weird. It was just like, I don't understand that thinking. But you're right. We have to be mindful when building community, and this community can be built in so many different avenues. Like if you have a business, you better be building community too.
Yeah.
Because business is just it has to be ran differently. The world is different, and people want to have purpose behind their dollars, right? And
Yes.
I mean, they do. And I mean, I'm big on that. So I can't imagine, how many other people are. But I just want to honor the fact that you were talking about protecting yourself when you're in a leadership position, because a lot of times as women, we tend, like you describe this background knowledge you have, and you're talking about it comes so easy to me. Do you know we need these in workshops and master classes, right? Like, yeah, go follow HGYC Club so Tara can give this to you in a workshop or a master class, and shout her out, tell her Allegra said it. Because if you know the history behind why we think the way we think and why our brains work and why our genders work the way they work, I started to understand how to be more accepting of, the way things are. And to say, oh, okay, well, that's why I don't ask for help because I'm so used to being like the gatherer. And
Yeah.
I'm used to my mom and my grandmother. And all the women in my family, y'all, just FYI, have had businesses, but none of them have had sustainable businesses where you can still see them today. I will not be that one. Okay. And it's not because necessarily they wanted to have the business. They may not have wanted to have it. But the point is that I believe that we just may not have had that opportunity, like to your grandmother's point, like if they're not going to give you that loan or that degree or whatever you're looking for, because they're like, you're going to go home and have babies. How disrespectful, number one. But number two, that was like their mindset back then, right? Like your job is to have babies. So I think when we talk about protecting ourselves now as women and we're leaders, having that, more of I think I've found my challenge is being a little bit more selfish, right? Like saying, hey, like this space is only for me, and it's not not okay for you to step that boundary, right? Like I don't care who you are. And that's even with, my personal life now, I've learned that because of how I've had to behave as a leader, right? Because people will just walk all over you. You let them. And I found out the hard way, Tara, and just so we can start tuning down this live, because I really want people to get to know more about you and the Hey Girl You Can community from this collaboration, because I've seen members benefit from being a part of multitude of communities that really help them, shape their lives in different ways. And when I came to the Hey Girl You Can Club, I was just impressed by the transparency. And that's really because of you, right? But I just, want to honor the fact that I was really that person that when I got to a certain point of my leadership and community, I did still want to be liked. Like I was like, why are they acting like that? Like, why are they, saying that when it's not true, or why they, and I think that's a common thing that happens when you get to a certain place of leadership, that when you never been there before, you just don't know what it looks like. So it feels weird. But history has proven that the higher you go, the more you're not liked anyway. And I think I've found rest in that, if more people don't like me, then that means I'm doing something right. And then on top of that, the other side of it is, but how do I emotionally handle it? Because as a woman, I have a nurturing side where I still feel it, right? Like I still feel that detachment or someone. So I just want to kind of end on that note and get your feedback, because you've been doing it, and I want to hear your.
How do you deal with the feelings of it? And I think, one of the things I heard you say was with the boundaries and feeling bad about setting boundaries. And I think that is a normal thing as a woman. And it goes back to how, just even think about little girls, right? A little girl doesn't want to kiss her grandpa because he smells funny. And what do we tell her? But you'll hurt his feelings. You'll hurt your grandpa's feelings. Go kiss your grandpa. We teach young girls at 3 years old, they don't even have a right to set a boundary to their own body, right? So there's a lot of messages that we get as young women about pleasing everybody else around us. So the way you feel, and if somebody's watching it, the way, if you're like, oh, this is what's wrong with me, I'm a people pleaser. No, there's nothing wrong with you, right? It may have been that you got some messages that this is your responsibility, your job, depending on where you were in your family. Were you the peacekeeper, right? Like there's different roles, even on your, which level, if you were born as a first child or a middle child, all those different kinds of things. And so it's normal. I think that's the big thing, is I think people need to hear more and more that however you feel is normal. I trust you, somebody else is feeling the same way. You're not the only one who feels it, because we feel like, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you, right? So how do you deal with the coming to terms with not everybody's going to like me? I think there's a few things you can do. One is you need to really start to track your wins. You need to start to track the people who do love you. So I have a box of cards. And every time somebody writes me a card, if I speak at an event or I, do a workshop, or and somebody writes something and they write something like, hey, you did a great job. We really appreciated, my group got so much from you, blah, blah, blah. I keep it in a box. So when you have those times where you're like, oh my gosh, everybody hates me, I stink, why am I doing this? Nobody's getting value from me. This group hated me. You can go back and be like, no, here's my proof that there are people that are getting value from what I'm doing. Here's my proof. And if you don't have that, go send out a thing on your email list and say, hey guys, can you go to my Facebook page and leave, it's review time to leave a review, and ask people to leave you a review. And then you screenshot those and you put those in your phone and you pull those out at the times that you don't feel great. Okay. I think there's also, so that's like a very tangible thing that you can do. I think it's also, journaling is really powerful. I'm a big soapbox about creating a grateful journal and focusing on where are you having an impact. And that could be something as small as, I did a webinar and a girl commented this and she said that was really helpful, and you write that down in your notebook. Right? And this is not going to apply for everybody. This is going to apply for somebody who really is struggling with I get my feelings hurt, I need to build some thicker skin. How do I start to build some thicker skin? How do I start to grow some thicker skin? This is how you start to grow that thicker skin. You have to, the reason you get thicker skin is because you get more positive affirmations saying you're doing a great job, that those people become less, right? And then I would also caution you, where are you hanging out? Who are these people? There's a crazy button that I learned about. It's like a secret. Nobody knows it. It's an unfriend and unfollow. And some of us need to unfriend and unfollow. And I had somebody recently in the last 2 years, it was actually very painful, quite openly. It was somebody I was friends with for a very, very long time. He absolutely hates Christians and literally would come to my Facebook page just to post. I mean, literally to the point where I just had a picture one time of me standing in my living room and there was a cross in the background and he felt the need to comment on it. And it just got where I was like, it's like literally you're coming to my front yard to insult me. Right? Like I can understand if I was posting on your page, but I think sometimes people forget, like your Facebook profile is like your front yard, right? And now Instagram may be a little bit different, right? Or if you're asking for engagement, but sometimes it's okay to block those people out of your life. Like literally there's a block button where you never need to see them again. And this is crazy. I've even done this with people who were not bad people. It's just that when I constantly saw their perfect life, I felt bad. And I was like, you know what? I just need to stop seeing how great your life is. And it's because maybe her life really was that great. I'm not saying it wasn't fun, but it just made me feel bad. Now that's my own problem, right? That's not her problem. That is my problem. I acknowledge and own that that is my problem. And so a way to avoid that was to say, maybe I shouldn't be seeing that. Maybe I shouldn't be filling my brain with that, right? But if you've got people who are like you don't, this is another one too, like you don't always have to answer the phone. And sometimes a text message that ends in a period, there was not a question mark at the end. You may not have needed to respond. If there a period is like period end, I have some people in my life that when they send me a text message, I've had to really and I'm still working on this. Not everything needs a response. You know, particularly if you're somebody like me who feels like I need to defend myself. That is a really tough one for me. And then I need to say, why do I feel I need to defend myself? You know, because again, even somebody who is triggering you, right? It's never about them, it is about us. So when we're triggered, when we're hurt, when our feelings are hurt. And then finally, I think the easiest way, I'll leave you with one other tip. And it's a class that I teach called the STAR method. So I'm going to teach it to you like super quick because hopefully it'll help. You want to be the star in your alone life. You don't want these negative Nellies to take your star away from you. You want to be the star. So what happens is when somebody says something, oh, Allegra, you are, right? And that's their story. The first thing we need to do is we need to stop, because we go, oh my gosh, I'm what she said. No, we need to stop first. And then we need to think, because as women, we don't like to think. We like to just feel, right? And feelings are fickle. So we need to stop and we need to think. And then, oh, she says, I know the STAR method. And then we need to acknowledge. So this is the A. We need to acknowledge that there could be a different version of the story. So let's say, I'm going to use an example. Somebody says to you, oh, Allegra, you're just so bossy and you're not open to anybody else's opinion. Okay. Maybe you are bossy. Kind of like Beyonce. She's like, I'm not bossy. I am the boss, right? I think she's famous for saying that, right? So maybe I am bossy. Maybe this person isn't feeling like their voice is heard in other places of their life that has nothing to do with you, but she can't say that there. So she feels like you're the person that she's going to take that out on. Maybe this person doesn't feel confident in what she has to say. And so she's not communicating it properly. And so because you're communicating in a more effective way, to her, that feels bossy. Okay. Like we have to start to make up, okay, what are alternate stories? Can we acknowledge that there's other stories that could be going on here, right? Can we also acknowledge that maybe bossy, maybe this is a place where you should be bossy. In this case, Allegra is the leader of her community. That is a place where she should be bossy. That isn't a bad thing. So maybe this person is confused on her role and your role, right? Not in a bad way, but just maybe there's a little confusion here of like, yes, you're right. I because this is my baby that I'm invested in and I'm the one showing up all the time, right? So once we can acknowledge there's different stories here, then our last one is we can choose how we respond. Because what most of us do is somebody says something about us, we get all feely, lots of feelings, and then we react. And we just gave them all of our power. You were like a little puppet, and that little person was the puppet master. But if I can stop, and I can think, and I can acknowledge there's probably lots of versions of the story here. I don't really know what the right one is. It's not to even figure out what the right one is, just to simply say, okay, there's lots of versions here. Maybe it is her version, but there could be other ones. Given that there could be other ones, how do I want to choose to respond to this? And now I've taken back my power, right? So it's really simple. And if you start to use that all the time, you'll find it's helpful in everything. It's helpful with your spouse. It's helpful with your kids. It's helpful with your work, right? But we have to stop reacting. And I went through a season, particularly with my ex-husband, who, when I was going through my domestic violence divorce, I was in full-on reaction mode all of the time. He pulled all of the strings. Because every time he did something, I would just react. Now, it was a horrible situation. It was a scary situation. It was a real situation. But I have to look back and acknowledge that a lot of it was me reacting versus stopping, thinking, acknowledging, and responding, right? Like somebody else can only do to you what you let them do to you, right? I mean, unless it's something where you're in a really violent situation where you're being violated and all of that. And we're not talking about that. We're talking about like nasty people on the internet, you know?
Just wow.
So,
Just wow. Thank you so much for that. That was like a little mini masterclass. I'm over here like writing my little side notes. You know, we are always students, and I want to honor that because I told y'all, you know, there are community leaders that I had to learn from. Someone said the method was the STAR
that
method.
method,
Yes.
yeah.
Stop, think. Okay, somebody's in there going in. Stop, think,
I
act, and
love it.
choose. Thank you for that. It's really important for us to get this knowledge and understanding and to share this among each other. And I heard you say that in the beginning that, overshare, like don't be stingy and be able to be transparent in front of people. That's the message I got today. And I also just want to honor the fact that, you said so many great things. And for me, I think I had to do a lot of those different things, and I'm still working on each and one of those things as I
I'm
grow.
working on all of them still.
Oh my God, as I grow, as I learn, and I'm just like head nodding behind the scenes, y'all, because listen, I think that what you said earlier too about you having to have that moment for yourself to turn off someone else's perfect life so that you can focus on you. I think that is powerful because we are always distracted. I mean, I had to have a moment as I was building the community to have a realistic like serious like conversation with myself. Like, how long do you really spend on social media? How long do you spend on building your community? And I was like, okay, conversation over, because I already knew the answer. And I think that if we're really just kind of taking some of that attention off of other people, other things, focusing on what we're really dealing with, which is where the transparency is coming from, I feel, right? Like I'm willing to be me and go through the things and talk about what those things are so that other people can see it through me. And I truly know for me, that's a blessing because I think I've been able to become the person I am because of that type of attitude. Leaders like you, Tara, that have come to the forefront, that just did it your way. Thank you for not changing the name of Hey Girl You Can Club. Thank you so much, Cynthia. Yeah, because I mean, shout out to all of your supporters. I've seen, I still see some of your leaders. Mimi was just in a clubhouse room earlier. We have people that I've seen on your stages that have constantly, just ran rooms. Dr. Jackie, she does rooms
Yeah.
for us, but constantly, supporting and in the Hager You Can room. And we're like, okay, y'all, let's run over there to Hager You Can. And myself, and TC were like, wait, we haven't been in the Hager You Can club in a long time. And it's
Yeah.
kind of like having that old, friend that you go, oh, let's stop by their house. We haven't been there in about 6 months or so. So,
Yeah.
so thank you for this because it gives us an opportunity to really connect on a different level of community so that we can really talk as heads and of the community and show everyone around the world, because we have communities with people around the world, that as women, there are just so many avenues that we're growing in and we want to take everyone with us, but we know everyone can't come. So we're going to create space for those who are ready to go, and we'll keep growing from there. Tara, before we get out of here, though, I want them to be able to find your community, to be able to get into any of your workshop spaces or whatever you're doing. So
Yeah.
let us know
So
how.
I'll tell you what we have. So you can just go to heygirlyoucan.com. So pretty easy. If you go to heygirlyoucan.com, we have virtual and in-person networking events. There's an events tab. The main thing is to get subscribed because quite openly, I'm not hanging out in Clubhouse the way that I used to, but I do send out stuff all the time. Like I just sent out an email to everybody saying, hey, Allegra and I are going to be live. Come join us on this. With events, with any Tara that I'm going to be speaking, things like that, other people I'm collaborating with. We are in the process of building out a mini membership that will give you access to a personal development class, so like a Grow You, and then a Grow Your Business class every month. And so that would be that you'd have 2 classes every month. I will tell you, this has been a crazy personal year for me. So my goal was to have it launched January 1st, and it's not. I've kind of, again, when we're talking about like being a leader, I've had to kind of give myself a little bit grace this year that because of just some personal things that things aren't happening on my time frame, but that is in the works. So as long as you're plugged in, you will know about that and you'll have access to that. And my goal with that is to be able to provide people with more access to uh, things that will support them regardless of where they are in their journey. So if you need that emotional support, if you need life skill support, personal growth support, time management, mindset, all of that, or if you need practical business things, just legit business. How do I do this? How do I do this content? How do I do social? How do I do that? Like you'll have access to both and you can pick and choose what you want. So that's kind of where we're headed.
I'm excited for y'all. These are some of the experiences I had when I came, and I mean, there's so much more to Hager You Can club now than there was when we had the OG spots on Clubhouse, had to fill out forms, and we didn't have chats or emojis. Y'all are so lucky. So I just, Clubhouse is really, Tara, are you guys still doing a lot on Clubhouse? Because
Oh, I was going to ask you that. Are you still doing a lot on Clubhouse? Because it sounds like you are.
we are, and
Yeah.
and as the community knows, and Tara, this is something that I'm going to be talking to you about even more, because we're going to be really doing more collaborations where we can combine our community efforts. When myself and TC were talking about Hey Girl You Can Club, we're like, wait a minute, we haven't been under the umbrella, so we're going to start reconnecting. And for those of you
That
who
would
are
be
on
great.
Clubhouse,
Well,
yeah,
and I'll just tell you quite openly, when they did the upgrade to that 2.0 version, I was like, I don't know what is going on here anymore. So I really struggled with the way the new app is, with the chats, with the voice chat. I do have people who still run rooms. I know Linus just did a great room, and I know Dr. Jackie still does. I'm not hosting regular rooms. And a big part of it, quite openly, was that when everything shifted to this new version, I felt like I was kind of behind on catching up and have not really. I've talked to some people like Jonathan and Mimi and been like, okay, help me understand how you're using it now. But I haven't found it the way that I used to, which has been really a difficult thing to say, because it was someplace that I was showing up so regularly, absolutely loved. And so the Hey Girl You Can community kind of migrated off of Clubhouse, into a different space. But if there was a way I could, continue to utilize Clubhouse, I would love to. I just haven't figured out how that is yet. So you and I might need to have a separate conversation, or maybe hop into some of the stuff that you're doing to see how that's working. I actually sent a message out. I don't know if you got this from me, but I was like, does anybody feel like Clubhouse feels like a dating app? Because
yeah.
I can
Well, I
get
mean,
messages that from like
so,
random people and they're literally just like, "Hi, Tara," and I'm like, "Who?
well,
What?
I think
What?"
it's so weird, because I think it's different for different people now, right? Because I've never left the app, so I think everyone's experience is going to be so different. We will talk about this, Tara. We have to get
Okay.
together. We have to do some things, because we just found that Clubhouse did another change. They're always doing changes, right? It's never going to end. Never ever going to end. And the biggest problem was that they meshed everything together, so it's so confusing once they went to houses. So it just kicked everyone off, because
Yeah.
our audience left. We
Yeah.
didn't have our
That's
followers
exactly
anymore.
when I was like, I don't know what's going on.
It was extremely disrespectful to individuals who really like, and I just want to put it out there for community builders like yourself and other large communities that really brought the people to the app. It really was, because
I appreciate you saying that, because that is how
yeah.
I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also one of the reasons. I felt like I had worked very hard to establish myself on the app, build the following. And for you guys who don't know, I mean, I had like over 16,000 followers that literally overnight were gone. And I felt like I've invested years on building these relationships, and it felt disrespectful is the right word, I think. As somebody who had been on from the beginning and was investing every single morning, 9 o'clock, onboarding new people, bringing people in, sharing the app. Yeah.
Oh, I was there for some of that, and I just want to, and yeah, I do want to honor that, because sometimes we do kind of go through these things, because we got to realize that the times have shifted since the pandemic. There's always something
Yeah.
happening, and we got to deal with it and get over it. But this moment is that special moment to say, yeah, that wasn't right. And I think for those of us that have own spaces on Clubhouse, I want to honor that and bring you back to a space where it benefits community, because it is a community app. And we have had a lot of changes, but Tara, we have had lots of beautiful rooms that I believe have changed the dynamics of a lot of people's lives, because we've used it on a content basis structure, not just because Clubhouse is bringing us all these people. We're always bringing the people to Clubhouse anyway. Like, that's always the case, whether they pop in the bottom of the goo or not. They're listening to us, and
Okay.
they're coming up and sticking around for that. So we just re-strategized, and I would love
Yeah,
to
I
include
might
that.
love to hop on a quick call with you, and you could show me kind of how you're utilizing it, and maybe hop into some of your spaces to check out what you're doing.
All
Because I
right,
have
y'all see how
not
leaders do.
figured that
We
out.
get here and we collaborate real quick. All right, we got to get out of here.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you guys. I hope you head over to Hey Girl You Can and get connected, because I would love to collaborate. And if you're on my LinkedIn and you're watching, because I know we're streaming there, you need to head over to the W.I.N community and connect there. Oh, that way, go over and connect with her. So my people go there, your people come here, and we'll all get together.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you so much. And thank y'all for watching through. We'll see y'all later. Have a great day. Bye.